Very consequential decisions have been made in recent months that will impact on Irish agriculture into the coming years. And I say that having been personally involved with my colleagues in the renewal of the nitrates derogation, in the substantial amendments of safeguards associated with the Mercosur trade deal in the event of its passage, and they were passed here today, and also as our lead negotiator for the Renew Group in relation to the next Common Agricultural Policy. And I was somewhat disappointed by the issues and the saga that has emerged on foot of the demand of IFA and others for Larry Murrin to step down as CEO. In the first instance, I would have thought that he was entitled to due process. We had that at both at the board and at committee, Oireachtas all-party committee last week, when he gave extensive responses to many questions and assertions and allegations and whatnot. And it really boiled down to the fact that he admitted to the fact that his food company has imported in 1 year out of 3 or 4 that were referenced less than 1% of Brazilian beef to supplement and as a matter of contingency for extensive global contracts that his company has. And that's perfectly legal. It's it's standard practice, and I accept that. We've had a personalised campaign thereafter, which laid bare the fact too that not only are we talking about the importation of a minuscule amount of beef, but we're also, you could argue we're feeding our livestock Mercosur grain, which could well be as a result of it having been had pesticides that will be banned here applied to it, and so forth. But look, that's getting away from what I believe are the real issues, the issues that people want to address, whether it be cap reform, market volatility, and the whole issue of farm incomes. And that's where we need to be. And I think it's incumbent on all parties to act responsibly, get back to the table, resolve the issues, even as I said in the Parliament yesterday. If that involves further representation on governance boards, so be it. But ultimately, we want everybody to be included in a process where we move together and forward, which has been the case in relation to those decisions I mentioned earlier. And that's to the betterment of the sector and to me and others who have been given the privilege to represent them here in the European Parliament. The other question you asked then about the feedback from my colleagues, look, we weren't alone in our opposition to the Mercosur trade agreement. You see France and Poland and others whom too, we've seen comments from the Agriculture Commissioner, we've seen commentary from some of the press, but ultimately a democratic decision has been made. It itself has been challenged by virtue of the legal assessment of the conditions associated with it and the mechanism of separating trade from the political agreement, which will be resolved in its own time. And we've put forward, I think what are substantial amendments to the safeguards in the event of its passage. And I think that's incumbent on the likes of me to do that. In the event of it proceeding, there will be an opportunity for recourse in the event of many fears coming to pass, and funds set aside for that reason, new resources and funding and new inspections, whether it be at abattoirs or whether it be at ports and so forth, all that weren't part of the initial agreement and are now part of it. And that's us doing our best to do the job that we were elected to do while recognising the supremacy of the democratic process. I, along with others, voted against the trade agreement and will vote against the trade agreement for primarily that reason, despite the fact that if you were to look at it economically or the bottom line or revenue resource to Ireland and its capacity to increase those for different sectors, it'd be a done deal. But it's not always about the money, it's not always about the bottom line. Sometimes it has to be about the principle, and the environmental principle and standards that we have worked hard to achieve, that acknowledges the quality and that whole quality process and the means by which we get the QVC on the product is something that farmers are very worried and concerned about. And they look at the likes of this and they wonder, is it conflated and does it contradict the commitments that they're making? I don't believe it does, as I said to you, but that's notwithstanding the genuine fears and concerns that they have, because they're at the coalface and they're worried about their livelihood, their families and their income. And I'm glad that the Minister has responded in kind to what I was saying last night by virtue of the fact that he's calling all stakeholders together and to discuss the wider issues and the wider concerns that have been debated and spoken and raised during the course of this debate. But the issue about not participating in governance boards is something that has to be addressed. And as I said, if that involves more inclusive representation of farm organisations, so be it, because we all want to move forward. We all want to address cap reform, we all want to address the market volatility and other trade agreements that would be more beneficial not only to the sectors I've mentioned, whether it be the drinks and the Medicare and all those other contract procurement opportunities, but further advancement and enhancement of what our food quality is in relation to it generating more income, not just for the state, but for those that work hard to produce it.